His lunch was simple, but what it led to was extraordinary. The rice ball slipped from his fingers and began to roll. A small white comet across the forest floor. The old man lunged and chased it, breath tight, palms scraping the leaf litter. The Omusubi hit a slope, skittered between ferns, and vanished into a dark hole at the base of an old tree. From below came a thin, bright chant, singing that sounded too joyful to be simply the work of wild creatures. He had not expected company, and the idea warmed him and worried him at once. The rice ball rolls away. He paused a moment to steady himself and rubbed the dirt from his sleeve. Omusubi Kororin, Kororin Kororin, the mice celebrated their gift. His wife packed his lunches the same way each morning, warm rice pressed into a neat shape, a strip of seaweed sometimes tucked at the edge. He had walked the same path for years, sat beneath the same tree, and unwrapped his cloth the same way. That afternoon the first rice ball escaped and, when the singing rose from the hole, he dropped a second one down to listen. The song answered him in high, ringing notes, Omusubi Kororin, Kororin Kororin. The sound was precise and small, like beads clicking together. Curiosity nudged him forward. He leaned over the opening, trying to see where the rice had gone, and in a single careless moment he slipped and tumbled headfirst into the darkness, rolling as the rice had rolled. The underground feast. He landed on a bed of dried grass and blinked at a room that looked like someone's careful dream. Lanterns swung from threads, casting moving pools of light. Low tables were set with dishes of seeds, candied rice, and roasted kernels. Miniature plates held portions arranged with the same care a human might use for a festival. Dancing, singing, feasting, all because he had shared his rice balls. The mice wore tiny garments sewn from scraps, a sash here, a patched jacket there. They paused mid-step to regard him with wide-eyed curiosity. A white-furred elder stepped forward, whiskers trembling as if he were laughing. "Welcome," the elder said. "You have given us food, you are our guest." The chamber smelled of toasted grain and wood smoke. Somewhere a small drum kept time. A child mouse balanced a grain of sugar on its nose and then lost it in a delighted squeak. The old man found himself laughing too. He had spent a life measuring his fortunes in pieces of cloth and handfuls of rice. Here, magnified and strange, those small comforts felt abundant. He ate slowly, letting each tiny mouthful remind him that sharing had its own reward. The music, too, was a bridge. Tiny flutes and a plucked string instrument made a bright, urgent sound that kept everyone alert and connected. For the old man there was a quiet, inward shift. He saw, for a moment, what generosity could do when met with warmth instead of suspicion. The magical mallet. When the feast eased, the chief mouse approached and produced a carved mallet small as a thumb. Its grain was worn smooth from many hands, and a faint pattern of tiny waves ran down its handle as if it held a memory of small tides. "This is for you," the mouse said. "Strike it and your wish will be answered. Use it wisely." "Use it wisely," the mouse said, but would his neighbor listen? He climbed back into daylight with the tiny mallet held tight. At home he tapped it once, awkward and unbelieving, and coins appeared at his feet, first a loose coin, then a small cluster. Over the next weeks he struck it 3 times, never for splendor but for need. To pay a bill when the brazier cracked, to buy a patch of cloth when cold weather came earlier than expected, to replace a worn strap on his wife's basket. Each time the mallet produced only what they required. The couple did not change their tables or their manners. If anything, the mallet made them more careful. His wife measured the rice with the same steady hand, and the old man kept giving away a small portion now and then, as if to acknowledge the kindness he had received underground. Neighbors would nod and offer a spare yam, or stop by with tea. Friendships grew in quiet, ordinary ways rather than in sudden displays of wealth. Neighbors noticed small differences: a repaired fence post, a cured cough soothed with saffron tea, a borrowed tool returned clean. Some of these gifts arrived without explanation. The old man assumed they were ripples from an act that had been more than a single event. That winter he left an extra rice ball where the ground dipped by the tree and found, in the cold months that followed, unexpected kindnesses that felt like answers rather than miracles. These were not flashy changes, they were small, steady repairs that made the household easier to live in. The greedy neighbor gets nothing. The neighbor overheard the tale in whispers and misremembered it as a promise of endless gold. He kept his shutters drawn and counted his stores each night, hungry for more. When he walked to the tree, he carried a whole string of rice balls and threw them down one by one. He demanded gold, and ended up with less than he started with. He followed them eagerly, expecting ceremony. The mice offered crumbs and a place by the low tables, but the neighbor demanded the mallet and shouted at their chief. When politeness did not bend him, he tried to frighten them with a crude imitation of a cat. The mice fled in alarm, their lanterns guttered, and the neighbor groped in pitch dark for the tunnel out. He climbed back up and found, to his rage and confusion, bare earth where a hole had been. He stomped and dug and called for help, but the entrance had vanished. He returned home with the same sacks he had brought, only heavier with anger. The old man learned of this later and felt a second, inward shift. Relief that the mice had protected their own and a sober understanding that not all gifts are meant to be owned.